Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on a really fascinating exploration. We're diving into the world of certain plants, our minds, and, well, the planet itself.
Yeah, it's quite a mix. We've pulled together research and articles looking at everything from, ancient traditions right up to modern neuroscience.
And our mission, really, is to uncover some of these surprising connections. How do these plants offer insights into ourselves and our environment?
It really taps into something fundamental, I think, that curiosity many of you might have about consciousness, maybe psychedelics, or just different ways of seeing our place in the world.
Exactly. We want to unpack some key ideas, some surprising links without, drowning you in jargon.
Right. It's about exploring how certain plants, the ones indigenous cultures have held sacred for, well, ages, might hold unique keys.
Keys to understanding our relationship with ourselves, with nature, bridging that ancient wisdom with what science is finding now.
So we'll be touching on indigenous practices, sure, but also neuroscientific models
Mhm.
and even things like the gut microbiome and, believe it or not, plant intelligence.
Okay, so where do we start? Maybe with the historical roots.
Good idea.
Hmm.
Let's ground ourselves in that historical and cultural context first.
It's
It's just so important to remember these plants weren't, recreational for many cultures.
No, they were sacred tools, deeply woven into societies.
Absolutely. Essential for healing, for spiritual insight, for understanding their connection to the whole ecological web around them. They built incredibly sophisticated knowledge systems over millennia.
Right. So let's make this concrete. Maybe some examples.
Definitely. Let's start in the Amazon basin. Ayahuasca.
Ah, yes, ayahuasca, central to groups like the Shipibo. Even the name, right? Spirit rope or liana of the soul.
Exactly. It hints at that profound spiritual meaning. It's a brew, typically prepared from two plants, the Banisteriopsis caapi vine, and then the leaves of Psychotria viridis. That's the one with the DMT.
And it's used in ceremonies led by a shaman.
Often, yes, an onanya in the Shipibo language,
Hmm.
for spiritual exploration, community bonding, healing, a whole range of things.
The rituals themselves sound intense, those sacred songs, the Icaros.
The Icaros. They're believed to be taught by the plant spirits themselves.
Yeah.
Crucial for guiding the experience, for healing.
Yeah.
And that purging process you often hear about.
Right.
That's seen as a really necessary cleansing spiritually and emotionally.
And the Shipimo worldview itself. Plants as sentient beings
Right.
with spirits.
Yes, Ibo, they call them.
Ha!
Healers cultivate these deep relationships with plant spirits, often through practices like Sama special plant diets. It's about fostering that connection.
Like a dialogue with the plant world.
Precisely. Ayahuasca, or Oni as they call it, is seen as a source of direct knowledge onana. Knowledge about illness, about other medicinal plants, about the forest itself. They see the forest as a living pharmacy. Te tibi jui rikirao.
Amazing. Okay, let's shift continents. Central Africa. Iboga.
Iboga, yes. The sacred heart of the Buddhist spiritual tradition, practiced by groups like the Fang in Gabon and Cameroon.
Derived from a shrub root, right? Tabernanthe iboga.
That's the one. It holds huge spiritual significance, used for deep spiritual growth, community stability, religious ceremonies, and it's gained attention for its use in treating addiction, too.
The initiation ceremonies sound profound. Large doses, long visionary states.
Extremely profound, days sometimes. The belief is that these states connect people directly to their ancestors, to the spirit world, offering healing, understanding.
And there's a whole cosmology behind it.
Oh, yes. Buddhist cosmology, particularly the Dasumba Fang tradition, delves into the origins of life, creation itself. Iboga is seen as a key to connecting with the higher self, the universe.
Guided by a spiritual leader.
Yes, the Nganga. And the rituals are immersive, music, dance, specific attire. It's all integrated.
And didn't they learn about it from animals?
There's a fascinating origin story, yes, linking its discovery to watching animals eat the root. It just highlights that deep connection to nature. An anthropologist, James Fernandez, called Bodhi an equatorial microcosm because it reflected their environment so deeply.
Incredible. Okay, third example. Peyote, North America.
Peyote. Laphora williamsi. A small cactus, contains mescaline, used sacramentally for, well, potentially thousands of years.
And it's central to the Native American Church, the NAC.
Yes, the central sacrament. The NAC is interesting because it blends traditional native spirituality with Christian elements.
Their ceremonies sound quite different. All night in
Yeah.
Tipis.
Prayer, singing, peyote consumption, water rites, contemplation, focused on healing, guidance, giving thanks.
And peyote isn't just a substance, it's more.
Much more. It's sacred medicine, a teacher, the peyote spirit itself. It's seen as facilitating communion with the Great Spirit, with other spirits.
Mhm.
The whole peyote road idea is about an ethical way of life.
And the Wixárika people in Mexico, the Huichol, their connection is ancient.
Incredibly ancient and profound. They call peyote hikuri. It's fundamental to their cosmology, forms a sacred trio with corn and the blue deer, all seen as descendants of the sun god.
And their pilgrimage to Wirakuta.
A deeply significant annual ritual. They journey to their ancestral homeland, where peyote grows. It's a spiritual quest to find their life, involving purification, offerings, careful harvesting to ensure sustainability. The journey itself changes their perception, connects them to creation stories.
What really strikes me across all these is that the rituals are so much more than just taking the plant. They're like systems.
Exactly, intricate systems for encoding ecological ethics and what you could call healing cosmologies.
They embody traditional ecological knowledge, right? Check.
Precisely. Tech. It's this living, evolving body of knowledge, practices, beliefs about the relationships between all living things and their environment, passed down through generations.
And you see the ecological ethics everywhere. The Shipibo respect for sentient plants.
The Wixárika reverence for peyote, their sustainable harvesting.
Even the Karuk tribe's ceremonial regulation of fisheries. It's about balance.
And the healing cosmologies are all about restoring that balance within the person, the community, and between humans and the natural and spirit worlds. Illness is often seen as imbalance.
And the visions themselves are interpreted within these frameworks. Encounters with spirits providing guidance.
Right. It makes you really think about Dennis McKenna's idea of plants as teachers, or Jeremy Narby in The Cosmic Serpent, talking about interspecies communication, ecological wisdom coming through these states.
Absolutely. And you can't separate these from food systems, plant knowledge, seasonal timing, can you?
No way. They're completely intertwined. The Wixárika peyote hunt is tied to the agricultural calendar. Peyote and corn are spiritually linked.
Or the Shipibo knowing exactly when and how to harvest the ayahuasca plants, understanding that synergy between the two parts of the brew.
And the dietary restrictions, the sama, or just general prep for ayahuasca, aren't just physical, they're cosmological. What you eat affects your spiritual sensitivity. Even the timing of rituals often depends on when the plants are available seasonally.
Which really brings up the dangers of taking these things out of context.
Huge dangers. Decontextualization.
Right.
It leads to cultural appropriation, obviously, but also the loss of all that ecological wisdom and just a fundamental misunderstanding of what the plant is for, its potential.
Its efficacy and safety are tied to that whole system.
Completely. It's holistic knowledge.
Okay, that's a powerful foundation.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears now and look at the neuroscience side of things. The RBS model.
Right. REDS stands for Relaxed Beliefs Under Psychedelics. It's a really key framework from Robin Carhart Harris and Carl Friston. Tries to explain how these substances impact consciousness.
Relaxed beliefs.
Okay.
It involves something called predictive processing. Sounds a bit technical.
It can be. But the core idea, basically think of your brain as a prediction machine. It's constantly building models of the world, predicting sensory input, and then updating based on the prediction error.
So it's always trying to guess what's coming next based on past experience and beliefs.
Pretty much. And this happens in layers, a hierarchy. High-level areas are beliefs, concepts, are priors, send predictions down. Lower-level sensory areas send error signals back up if there's a mismatch. It's a constant loop.
Okay, I think I follow. So how do psychedelics fit in?
Arbizes proposes that classic psychedelics like LSD, psilocybin, the serotonergic ones, act on serotonin 2A receptors. And these receptors are packed densely in those high-level brain areas, including a network called the default mode network, or DMN.
The DMN. Okay, we'll need to unpack that. But first, what happens when those receptors get activated?
According to Rivas, it causes a relaxation, a reduction in the precision or the strength of those high-level priors. Those ingrained beliefs become less rigid.
Less top-down control.
Exactly. And when that happens, it allows more bottom-up information to flow more freely.
So raw sensory data, signals from inside our body, emotions, they get through more easily.
Precisely. Less filtering by our pre-existing assumptions. Carhart Harris talks about the anarchic brain, not chaotic, but less hierarchically dominated, more fluid.
Leading to a more entropic brain state. That sounds potentially negative.
Well, in this context, entropic means more randomness, more diversity in brain activity patterns.
Yeah.
But it's theorized to correlate with a richer, more flexible state of consciousness, the brain exploring more possibilities, you could say.
Okay. Let's circle back to that default mode network, the DMN. What's its job usually?
The DMN is most active when we're, resting, mind wandering, thinking about ourselves, remembering personal events. It's really key for our sense of self, our narrative identity, the story we tell about me.
Like the brain's internal storyteller, that left brain interpreter idea.
Yeah, it's related to that. The DMN is the broader network supporting that self-narrative function.
And what happens to it under psychedelics?
Well, interestingly, an overactive DMN is linked to things like rumination, anxiety, depression, getting stuck in those negative self-loops. Research shows psychedelics, and also meditation actually, tend to decrease DMN activity and connectivity.
Quiets down the inner chatter.
In a way, yeah. And this decrease often correlates with experiences of ego dissolution, that blurring of self and other feeling interconnected. Rebus suggests that by relaxing those DMN-maintained priors, psychedelics can temporarily break or allow a rewriting of those sometimes unhelpful self-narratives.
That makes a lot of sense. So if the top-down filters weaken and bottom-up signals amplify, what does that mean for perception?
It means increased sensitivity to patterns. Subtle patterns both outside us and inside bodily sensations, internal states. We might notice connections, meanings that were previously obscured by our fixed beliefs.
So not necessarily seeing things that aren't there, but seeing what is there differently.
Exactly. A different way of processing and integrating. And emotional processing changes too. More influence from deeper limbic areas, left cognitive control. Emotions can feel more direct, raw.
Which could be why they're useful therapeutically, processing old emotions from a new viewpoint.
Precisely. So Rebus offers this neurobiological framework for, rewilding perception, disrupting habitual brain modes, creating space for new patterns of thought, feeling, perception, leading to that appreciation for complexity, interconnectedness, fluidity, hallmarks of ecosystem consciousness, perhaps.
Fascinating. Okay, let's shift focus again, this time inward, to the gut-brain psychedelic axis. What's that about?
Yeah, this is a really exciting area. We already know the gut-brain axis is crucial, that two-way street between our digestive system and brain, influencing mood, behavior, immunity, everything.
Right.
Now, research is suggesting this axis might significantly shape how we respond to psychedelics.
Our gut microbes could influence the trip. Seriously.
That's the emerging picture. Our gut microbiota, trillions of microbes, do essential metabolic work, and their dynamic affected by diet, stress, meds.
And now potentially psychedelics too.
Seems like it. Early research suggests psychedelics, especially tryptamines like psilocybin and DMT, might interact with microbial enzymes or host receptors in the gut. They share some structural similarities with molecules the microbes already deal with.
Said the bacteria might actually be metabolizing these compounds.
There's evidence for it. Some gut bacteria can break down DMT, others can degrade LSD. This suggests our microbiome could affect how much of the substance gets into our system, how long it stays active.
Wow. Our gut is part of the journey.
Sort of. And think about serotonin. A huge amount of our body's serotonin is made in the gut, influenced by our microbiota. And many classic psychedelics work on serotonin pathways.
So the state of our gut, our internal terrain, could set the stage for the psychedelic experience.
That's the hypothesis. An imbalanced gut, maybe inflammation, altered metabolites, that could change how we process the psychedelic, or even just our baseline neurochemistry going in. It all shapes the effect.
Things like leaky gut could play a role too then.
It's plausible. Increased gut permeability, influenced by diet and stress, could alter absorption and systemic effects. It's an active area of investigation, links between permeability, inflammation, and how they might interact with psychedelics.
So it's bidirectional. Psychedelics affect the gut affects the psychedelic response.
That seems to be the case, which
Yeah.
has big implications. Think about personalized psychedelic therapy, maybe tailoring things based on someone's microbiome profile, or using diet prebiotics, probiotics to optimize outcomes.
So when we talk about set and setting, maybe we need to include the microbial setting too.
Absolutely. The gut microbiome looks like an active player here. Understanding these interactions is a major frontier.
Okay, let's zoom back out. That feeling of connection to nature people report. Is there more to it?
It's a really common and powerful reported outcome. It suggests these substances might genuinely foster what we're calling ecological intuition, that deep, almost gut-level sense of interconnectedness.
Which leads into some pretty wild ideas. Plant intelligence. Co-evolute.
It does. People like Dennis McKenna, Jeremy Narby, they've put forward some mind-bending theories. McKenna sees plants as teachers, our relationship with psychoactive plants as a form of symbiosis, coevolution,
Communicating chemically.
through their complex secondary metabolites. He suggests these aren't just random, but maybe sophisticated messages nudging us towards harmony with nature. He points to the sustainable practices in cultures with psychedelic traditions as potential evidence.
Right, like the plants are imparting ecological wisdom, a Gaia message. And ego dissolution helps us grasp that interconnectedness.
That's his view. And Narby, in The Cosmic Serpent, goes even further. He suggests shamans in ayahuasca states might access information at the molecular level, specifically DNA.
Accessing DNA. How?
He speculates DNA might be conscious, communicative, maybe via biophotons, light emissions from cells, forming a planetary information network. It's his way of explaining indigenous botanical knowledge, like how they figured out the ayahuasca synergy.
A planetary network of biological information.
Wow.
And the cosmic serpent visions.
Narby suggests that could be an archetypal image of the DNA double helix. It's speculative, sure, but points to a potentially very deep communication channel.
Okay, how does this connect back to rebus and pattern recognition?
Well, if Rebus is right about relaxing those top-down filters, making us more sensitive to bottom-up input, that could directly underpin enhanced pattern recognition, especially ecological patterns.
Well, less filtering means we notice the subtle connections in nature more.
Exactly, leading to that awe, that appreciation for intricacy, that feeling of oneness, understanding relationships. Studies do show increased nature-relatedness after psychedelic use, correlating with pro-environmental behavior.
The awe and ego dissolution kind of shrink the self-centered view.
Right, expands the sense of belonging to something larger. Michael Pollan described it as stripping away abstraction, allowing a direct, empathetic encounter with nature, even sensing plant agency. It fits that idea of terrain rewilders, both internal and external perception.
And then there's the role of stories, myths.
Huge role. The human-entheogen relationship looks symbiotic. Traditionally, users often become stewards, and indigenous cultures have these incredibly rich myths encoding ecological knowledge, ethics. Storytelling is ancient technology for transmitting information, maintaining bonds.
And the psychedelic experiences themselves can be narrative, right? Interacting with those myths.
They often are. They can break down old narratives, help form new integrated ones. Remember the DMN modulation? That allows for restoring the self in relation to the world.
And the stories emerging often emphasize symbiosis, reciprocity, the sacredness of nature.
Exactly. Symbiotic narratives as cultural inheritance systems, passing down ecological wisdom, fostering responsibility. It suggests coevolution plant chemistry influencing human consciousness and culture to benefit both humans and ecosystems. Maybe story itself is a kind of epigenetic inheritance system.
This all raises some big questions. Let's tackle them. First, can psychedelics really act as these terrain rewilders?
Good question. Internally, neural and microbial terrain. Rebus suggests neural rewilding, disrupting rigid patterns, ego dissolution as clearing the dominant self-species, and the gut-brain psychedelic axis hints at microbial rewilding, maybe restoring balance lost in modern lifestyles.
And externally, our ecological perception.
Evidence points that way, enhancing nature connection, ecological awareness, shifting perception towards seeing the environment as an integrated system that could motivate pro-environmental action.
Okay, next big one. What happens when you take these plants out of their ritual context?
Big implications. First, loss of meaning and integration. Rituals provide that framework. Without it, the experience can be confusing, hard to make sense of.
Increased psychological risk too, maybe. Without experienced guides.
Definitely. Traditional settings have shamans, guides. Decontextualized use often lacks that support. And then there are huge ethical concerns, cultural appropriation, commodification without respect or benefit to source communities.
And losing the ecological wisdom embedded in the rituals.
Exactly, severing that transmission. So while there might be therapeutic benefits in, say, a clinical setting, you likely lose a whole spectrum of effects tied to that traditional context.
Okay, final big question, maybe the trickiest. Is there a biological signature of ecosystem awareness? Can we measure it?
Complex and speculative, neurobiologically, maybe persistent changes in DMN dynamics, enhanced sensory processing, maybe similarities to flow states?
What about the gut-brain axis? Could we see it there?
Plausibly. Shifts in microbiome composition, changes in gut metabolite profiles that influence the brain. It's possible.
Longer-term epigenetic changes.
It's an intriguing thought. Could sustained shifts in worldview and connection to nature leave epigenetic marks? That idea of story as epigenetic inheritance fits here too.
Or even something about physiological coherence, attunement to Earth's rhythms.
Some theories look at quantum coherence in biology, or our body's entrainment to circadian rhythms, Schumann resonances. Maybe psychedelics help us reattune to those fundamental ecological rhythms.
So no single smoking gun, probably.
Likely not. Probably a complex interplay of neural, microbial, epigenetic, physiological factors. Needs interdisciplinary work to figure out.
We've talked about disruption, rewilding. Let's touch on order versus disorder. Entropy.
Right. Fundamental physics. Living things fight entropy, maintain order by importing energy, feeding on negentropy, as Schrödinger put it.
Constant work to stay organized.
Exactly. Metabolism, DNA repair, protein quality control, all fighting disorder. Chronic stress increases disorder. Now, Rebus describes an acute increase in brain entropy under psychedelics.
But you said that temporary disorder might be good.
Potentially, yes. It might allow breaking down rigid maladaptive patterns, an opportunity for the system to reorganize into a more adaptive, coherent state afterward.
Like hormesis, that what doesn't kill you idea?
Kind of, yeah. Low doses of stressors can trigger beneficial adaptations. Exercise is a stressor. Ancestral life had lots of natural hormetic stressors. Modern life, less so.
Even plant anti-nutrients can be hormetic.
At dietary levels, yes, they activate protective pathways. Our gut microbes help metabolize them, fine-tuning things. Maybe entheogens, with their intense experiences in a ritual context, act as profound psychological and neurobiological stressors.
Triggering adaptive responses. Rewilding the internal terrain by disrupting stuck states.
That's the idea, helping us return to a more ordered, flexible state.
And then there's that deeper level. Quantum coherence. Planetary attunement.
Quantum biology is looking into it. Quantum effects in photosynthesis, for example. Some propose life achieves quantum coherence, add the fine-tuning of the universe enabling complex chemistry.
And our own bodies tuned to Earth's cycles.
Circadian rhythms, Schumann resonances, we're embedded. Maybe entheogenic experiences allow a deeper perception of these coherences, self, Earth, cosmos, a kind of negentropic ecology, fostering consciousness that participates in life's drive towards order and renewal.
Which brings us back powerfully to our inner world, the terrain of our narratives.
So crucial. The stories we tell ourselves shape everything. Narrative identity, supported by the DMN, gives coherence. But narratives can become rigid, stuck.
Leading to rumination, anxiety, narrative stuckness.
Exactly. And that's where psychedelics, by disrupting the DMN, relaxing beliefs can cause story breaking, creating an opening for reframing new perspectives. Potentially powerful for things like eating disorders, where narratives about food and body are so central.
But context matters hugely for that reframing.
Absolutely. Traditional rituals, myths, they provide structures for integrating those broken stories. Without that, it can be fragmenting.
And today, our narrative terrains are shaped so much by digital media algorithms.
Totally. Algorithmic feeds can create a sense-making crisis, echo chambers reinforcing rigidity. This ultra-processed content hijacks attention, fragments understanding. It's a real contrast to the coherent narratives in traditional entheogen use.
Social media's impact on identity, well-being.
Fragmented self-presentations, social comparison. Maybe psychedelics offer a break, a chance to recalibrate towards more embodied ecological narratives. Even our food choices are tied to narrative health, identity, ethics. Psychedelics might shift those two, fostering reconnection with the body's wisdom.
It all seems to loop back. Soil, psyche, symbiosis, that microbial bridge.
Yes, the soil-psyche axis. The health of the soil, our gut microbiome, our well-being, they're linked. Healthy soil is this vibrant ecosystem, crucial for carbon cycles, nutrient cycling, water retention, disease regulation. It's fine-tuned, biodiverse, resilient.
And industrial agriculture has often damaged that fine-tuning.
Unfortunately, yes. Monocropping, synthetic inputs, tillage, they degrade soil, deplete nutrients, reduce biodiversity. It affects food quality, ecosystem health.
And the gut-soil connection. We co-evolved with soil microbes.
Yes, exposure to environmental microbes is important for training our immune system, developing a diverse gut microbiome. That microbial exchange through food, through interacting with nature is vital. It connects us right back to the earth.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it's amazing how these threads weave together.
Isn't it? Indigenous wisdom, neuroscience like Rebus, the gut-brain axis, plant intelligence theories, the power of narrative, the foundation of soil health. It's all interconnected.
It really highlights how these dreaming plants offer this unique lens on our connection to everything, the link between our inner terrain and the outer ecological landscape.
Yeah, leaves us with a pretty big thought, doesn't it? Could these plants offer more than just personal insight? Could they genuinely point towards a more harmonious, sustainable relationship with the planet?
challenging us to rethink our modern, often disconnected view of mind and nature.
Exactly. A powerful question for you, the listener, to ponder. How might these connections reshape your understanding of consciousness, health, and our place in the environment?
Thanks for taking the deep dive with us today.